Take real estate as a shot or as a fully stocked cooler. This is the 5 o'clock somewhere Real Estate Investor Podcast. We're bringing common sense back to real estate investment. So crack open your beverage of choice, sit back and relax, and allow us to learn you a thing or two.
It is 5 o'clock somewhere Real Estate Investor Podcast time. My name's Brett Bernard with Nick Gibson, Marissa Miller, and our pinhead producer, British prick, Richard is here also. He doesn't have a mic, though. You should be sitting over there where you got a mic so you could talk back to me. I'm glad you're not. But anyway, we are back for another episode, and I think today what we want to talk about is what we're doing in the market as a team, what we're doing for our investors, the type of properties we're working on, and give you a couple of stories of projects that we have worked on and have now sold so that you can kind of understand how you need to approach these projects and what kind of team you need to have around you and what's available to you. So stick around.
We are sponsored by Title Assurance and Escrow, a title company here in Cordova that does all of our closings, title work, escrows, and we only use Title Assurance and Escrow. That relationship is very important because we can get things done for our investors quickly and easily. So to speak with Title Assurance and Escrow, call 901-737-3332. Ask for Chris or April.
Okay, so we are going to discuss properties that we've done. I want to bring up one in particular that I've sold. It is in 38127 in Memphis, and everybody knows why 38127 is such a hot market currently is because you can still buy a reasonably priced house, turnkey, with a tenant in place, producing 1% or better. A lot of these rehabbers are putting warranties on their property, or you can still pick up a $60,000 house, put $15,000-$20,000 into it, and it's worth $120,000 when you're done. So 38127, if you're listening in Fraser, is a great opportunity for new investors to get involved in. Memphis has plenty of those emerging markets. I know 7 years ago it was Whitehaven, and about 5 years ago it was Raleigh. Now these are not separate cities; these are part of Memphis. They were previously a municipality in their own sometime back in the old days that were annexed in, but we still call them by their previous names for market reasons. Fraser is now on the cusp of doing what Whitehaven and Raleigh did over the last 5 to 7 years, and that was 5-6 years ago in Raleigh, you could pick up a $60,000 house, rehab it, rent it for $1,400, $1,300, whatever you get out of it. It was producing well over 1%. And then I can tell you now that the investors that purchase those properties with me back 4 or 5 years ago, all those homes are valued at between $130,000 and $150,000 today because the market went bonkers in Raleigh. It just went crazy. So Raleigh overcapped. It kind of leveled off. The prices stopped jumping. Investment kind of slowed down, and a lot of smart investors rolled to the other side of New Allen Road and started doing the same thing in Fraser. So now Fraser is on an uptick, and it's going to continue to do that for the next 3 to 5 years. So getting into Fraser 38127, if you're a little bit of a riskier investor that wants to ride a wave upward and you're not a coattailer where you're just going to wait till everybody's done it and then jump on board, Fraser's where you want to go. And I want to talk about one particular house. I've got a builder that builds new construction. He also rehabs, and it's one on Bitter Creek in 38127. I want to tell you the opportunity from both sides. So my builder picked this house up for $58,000. He needed to rehab it, and I think he put close to $47,000 into it, like new bathrooms, new kitchen, new floors, new roof, new air conditioner, everything. So he finished the work. So he's all in. I think he was all in around 85-ish, somewhere in that point. And I just sold this house for $153,000. $90,000?
Do you have your calculator ready?
Did you add that up for me?
I think he's going to need that.
What is 58 plus 47 is 105,000. Okay, thank you, Richard.
Carry
Asshole.
the one.
Anyway, I am not stupid. Stop treating me that way. So 5332 Bitter Creek. All right, we sold it for $153,000 is what we sold it for. So the buyer of that property ended up so the builder made a nice chunk of change on that property, flipping it, and the buyer ended up picking up a property for $153,000, which the builder gave him a $5,000 seller credit at closing to help with his out-of-pocket cash, so it benefited the buyer. And they put a tenant in there at $1,550 a month. Look at how that was a winning scenario from the start to the finish. So builder buys it, rehabs it, makes a nice profit on the sale. The person buying it bought a completely turnkey property with everything brand new with a 1-year builder warranty on it, producing $1,550 a month for a net sale of $147,000, $148,000 to them. So that whole scenario was a win-win from start to finish. And those are the types of deals that we're doing as a team here in Memphis. Our job is not just to take a buyer and sell them, whatever the hell it is we want to sell them to get a commission. Our job is to create financial gains for all aspects of that. So because we have a lot of builders we work with, we have the ability to be involved in a property that you may buy as an investor today, turnkey, but we were involved from when that builder first bought that property or that rehabber bought that property. So that's one of the type of properties I just sold. I sold 3 of those actually to the same buyer, same kind of scenario, different sales price, different level, but all of them are producing over the 1%. All of them are rehabbed. All of them have a 1-year builder warranty on them, which means my buyer is going to have zero maintenance for the first year on a turnkey rehabbed house, and he's going to cash flow 14% gross ROI. You can't get 14% gross return on your investment in the stock market, can you? Okay, Nick. So we were talking about one of your properties that you did. Lay that out for our listeners. So what our goal here is really for you to understand the Memphis market and understand truly what you can do in this market compared to what you can do anywhere else.
Yeah, so I've got a couple properties that I want to discuss briefly, and then I'm going to tie that into kind of what we do as a team and why you should really trust your partnership with an agent that you have on the ground, certainly if you're an out-of-town buyer. First property, East Frank Avenue. This was a large house for the area, 5-bedroom house. My client purchased it from a wholesaler, rehabbed it, placed an MHA tenant, paying $1,800 a month in a not so good part of town. But due to the size of the house, we used our leasing specialist to find, locate, and place a tenant. And
who was that?
Amisha.
Amisha? Okay.
And that house sold for $150,000. And there is absolutely no way that house would have appraised for anywhere close to that had we not met the appraiser out there, gone through, here's the rent roll, here's what we're getting through MHA, here's what was done to the house. So we were able to assist that appraiser with getting the numbers to where they needed to be so that they can move forward with closing. I mean, that's well over 1%.
Now, your client, though, bought that as a rehab project.
Yes, bought it from a wholesaler as a rehab project. Put some money into it.
Do you know what she paid for it versus what she had to put into it?
I believe I think she paid a little over $60 for the house.
Okay.
Put about $45 into the house.
Okay.
So, she made a nice return.
Granted, the ARV was $155, you said?
Mm-hmm. Or $150 is what it sold for.
But the ARV was what, $155 when it was done? That's what it CMA'd out?
No, CMAs would have been actually closer to like $130.
Oh, okay.
Just based on the area.
So the sale was a purpose. The sales price was because of the type of rent. It was the cash flow.
Right.
Okay.
It was cash flowing, and the person that ended up buying it simply looked at the cash flow and said, hey, these numbers work. I want the house.
Now, was this a cash buyer or was it a mortgage?
This was a mortgage because we had to meet the appraiser out there, and the appraiser was having a bit of a hard time, getting to that sales price.
But he got there.
But we got there.
And I find that interesting because I've got an investor who rehabs some houses, and we based the ARV based on what he's going to put into it and what he bought them for. And we had them pre-appraised or pre-numbered, and they were coming in, like one particular one came in at $115,000. Then when he goes to refi it, the refi appraiser came in at $95,000. So when you go to refi, understand one thing, the lender's going to do their best to push that appraisal number as far down as possible so they loan you as least amount of money as possible. If you're buying a home, that bank's going to instruct that appraiser to find the price, the contract price, come hell or high water. And that's what happened there. Even though CMA said it was worth $130, appraisal came in at $150.
But, that goes to kind of the next property I'm going to talk about. That's something that we had to do with our team here. We had to go meet the appraiser out there, walk through, and really help that appraiser be able to, get to that number that we needed. But that was a good deal for everybody. The flipper made money on it. The new buyer is going to be cash flowing immediately. So that was a deal that worked out well for everybody. Which brings me to another property that on Millington Street.
This is in 38127.
38127.
Okay.
This is where the out-of-town investor, client of mine, purchased a property from a wholesaler, sight unseen, had her own contractor go do the quote-unquote rehab on the property, reached out to me to sell this property now that it was quote-unquote rehabbed, and I went out there to take pictures of it, and this property was probably 60% completed, and my client was under the impression it was 100% completed, ready to list, and had already paid the contractor in full.
It's one of the dangers of an out-of-town investor just picking up the phone book and calling contractor, inspector, all these different people to work for them. It's hard to put a team together when you're 1,000 miles away.
Right. So I've gone to her and said, hey, utilize me. This is what I do. I'm boots on the ground. We're out there every day inspecting properties, walking properties, looking at properties. I'm also a contractor, so I know what to look for on these properties. And we could have saved a heck of a lot of headache and time.
Probably made her more money.
100%.
Because if I'm not mistaken, is she paying cash or is she using hard money?
A mixture of the two.
Okay. So understand this. If you use hard money, you have a heavy interest payment every month, interest only. And every month that goes by that house isn't done and sold is costing you more money. So would you rather pay a contractor who you know can do it in 30 to 45 days for you, an extra $4 or $5,000 because it's a little more expensive to do it, to have it on the market in 45 days, or would you rather save that $5,000 and pay an extra $6,000 in interest payments because your contractor takes 6 months to do a 30-day job? That's a big question.
That's the big question.
People always choose cheap, but at the end of the day, it ends up being more expensive. And that's a really good point I want to run home to people. Just because it's cheap up front doesn't mean it's going to be cheap in the long run.
But that's where having a good team on the ground comes into play from, we can provide construction services. We can refer you to property managers. We can refer you to local insurance agents, lenders. We know all of these people that go into a successful investment property. Utilize us. Let us go out there and look at these properties for you before you buy them.
Right.
So you know what you're getting into. Utilize us and our resources here to help you make a better decision on the investment.
To pick up the phone and say, hey, Brett, I'm thinking about picking up this property to rehab and flip it. I want you to sell it for me when it's done. You know what's going to cost you to have me go do that? $0. Doesn't cost you anything. We're not going to charge you fees and money to go out and just check out a property for you. So you should use a team. And that's the beauty of us is that we don't just refer you to somebody. We refer you and stay involved. So we refer you to a contractor. We're the ones that are going to go out and check the job for that contractor and update you on where they're at. When you get ready to cut a draw check to that contractor, we're going to go out and verify it's actually completed before you. I can't tell you how many times I had an investor call and say, hey, can you go check this out? Contractor wants his check. Okay. Where are we at? Well, it's supposed to have the roof on and this is supposed to be done. That's supposed to be done. I go out there and be like, nope. Contractor's trying to get paid because he's used the money for something else. He doesn't have the money to put the roof on, so he's trying to get the investor to go ahead and give him a draw so he can then buy the roofing material. Once you get into that behind the 8-ball scenario, now you've got a contractor that's probably not going to finish that job. He's going to run out of money and he's going to bounce on you.
The same property that I'm talking about, I go out there to take some pictures when she told me it was ready to list, and the back door's wide open. It's raining outside, but the back door's wide open because the contractor lost the keys and had not placed a key box on the property yet. Well, I go inside and there's a frozen pipe during the cold temperatures that we had, and there's 3 inches of standing water throughout the entire property. So I relay this information to my client, and 6 days later, she's calling me again, and I'm telling her, hey, let me get involved with this. Let me help you navigate this and get through this process. 6 days later, the contractor's telling her, okay, everything's repaired, it's ready to list. I go out there thinking there's absolutely no way that everything was dried properly. Well, I go out there, they had sprayed Kills all over everything, repainted it, and the whole house was covered in mold.
I can't say this enough. Cheap is not always the best route, especially if you're investing in real estate. Because what's your goal investing in real estate? To turn it and make a profit. So any problems you have currently are going to persist when you go to sell the property, and then what happens? Now you've got a buyer saying, well, I've got a problem with this, so you need to fix this. Now you're coming out of pocket again to fix something that wasn't done right the first time.
Quality over quantity.
Exactly, which is why if you work with it, I'm not saying you have to work with our team, but if you're going to invest in any market, you need to contact a team that has all of the tools available to you to be successful. The tools are wide ranging, right? Number one, you got to get an agent who understands what the hell they're talking about. An agent that knows how to walk a property and tell you what their true opinion of this property is, and don't tell you their opinion simply because they're hoping you close and they can get a check.
I mean, how many times have we told a client, hey, walk away from this one?
Many times.
This is not a good deal.
But there's a lot of agents out there that just because they have a license doesn't make them a good agent, nor does it mean they understand what they're talking about. Unfortunately, there's a lot of agents that just want to get paid, and they'll sell you something that deep down inside they know is not going to work for you based on hopefully their good conversation with you to understand what your goals are. So number one, get you a good agent. Number two, make sure that agent has a team, not just a team of names, a team that works, right? They have the inspectors, they have the contractors, and that agent is willing to go out to that property every other day if he has to, or she has to make sure what you're paying for is being taken care of properly and being done properly. Make sure before they write a draw check, you write a draw check to the contractor that the job's been completed the way you have agreed for it to be completed. With the management companies, we refer you to management companies that we trust and we work with. Does it mean that they're always going to be perfect? No, it doesn't. But when they're not perfect, what do? You call us, we jump in and get involved with the management company and help you fix whatever BS is going on.
Well, and no management company is perfect.
No.
So you're never going to find that anywhere.
And there's a lot of management companies that are going to tell you all the things that they can do for you. And we're going to look at it objectively. And we know that there might be 6 different management companies that we work with, and each one of them is good in a certain area or a certain part of town. Well, we're going to take what your property is and give you our opinion of the best person to contact for that particular property.
Management company is not one size fits all. Some can, like you said, some management companies work well in 38127, 38109, 38128. And it all comes down to the location of the property, the level of the property, and the type of tenant you're getting, right? If you're going to be dealing with MHA tenants, is your best pick? Are they your best company? No, they're not, right? They're not. Absolutely not. Because they're not versed in that realm. Companies that work well would be Advantage, right? Amisha, Andre. Those are the people that work in those markets day in and day out and understand the tenants, the properties, and how to manage them properly. Because if you get a manager that doesn't know what they're doing, what happens? You get nickeled and dimed into the ground. Because every little call that comes in, they're sending contractors out to fix stuff, and they don't manage the property. They're just paying invoices for you.
They're just the middleman, but
right.
They're not actually managing.
And adding 20% on it.
And adding 20% on it. So that's another advantage we have based on whatever you're buying, whatever property you're getting. If you're buying it to rehab it, put an MHA tenant and keep it, then we're going to put you with one management company. If you're buying it, rehabbing it to flip it, we're not going to put it with a management company. We may put you with an MHA placement person so you could put a tenant in and increase the sellability of that property. There's so many aspects to going into this business that a lot of people just don't get. And then they finally figure it out and it's too late. They've lost thousands of dollars on deals where they could have made a good profit simply because they had an agent that didn't know what they were doing.
So I'm just going to piggyback off of what you all said about like having a team. So I'm in this deal currently, and when I made this deal or got this contract accepted, I was with another firm. I'm glad that I switched, multiple reasons, but one really good reason that stood out to me is that you all do have a team. You have reliable references. So this deal that I'm in, we put it under contract for $83,000 and whatever. And I went back today to do a walkthrough, me and the property manager, Amisha. She's very knowledgeable in her field, knows what to look for MHA Section 8 tenants. She herself can see that the property needs more work than what our client would like to spend.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you, did your client get an inspection?
My client did not get an inspection. He did get an appraisal contingency. However, we are out of that window. Now, he didn't get an inspection, and it would have been nice to be with stamps when I got this deal under contract because it would have been great for Nick to be able to come out on the front end. He's a contractor, to come out on the front end and kind of walk the property so I could have a better idea of what my client may have to come out of pocket to get this house tenant ready. It's not tenant ready. He's probably not going to be super interested in moving forward because it's going to exceed his limit on what he wants to pay. He's more so, he likes a turnkey. It's kind of already ready for you. Mm-hmm. Maybe small cosmetics. He has a $5,000 cap he doesn't like to go over. Well, this property probably needs I don't know, and don't quote me, I'm not a contractor, but more than 5,000 for
Right.
sure. So now that kind of puts me in a weird space as an agent, because our goal as agents are to keep the deal together.
Right.
So I'm going to do everything I can to keep it together. However, I'm just saying this to make the point of it's great to have a team of people that you can refer and rely on. Nick would have been a great person, to come walk through the property with me where he initially on the front end, so that I wouldn't even waste my time, my client's time, the sellers, all the parties involved.
Right.
So now I'm in a space where I'm like, man, I wish I had a contractor on my team where I have a relationship and a rapport with that would come out and take the time out of their day and just teach me some things, obviously, so I can kind of know what to look for going forward, and also just give me their, input.
I know some contractors.
You specialize in that, so.
Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, I wish I would have knew you then, because, this
I know
deal.
some contractors that can walk a property and couldn't tell you a damn thing about it, right?
Well, reliable. I would say
That's what I'm saying.
reliable, and
Right.
I'm after talking with you, Brett, for these past few months, getting to know you, I know that you're knowledgeable and you've been doing this for some time, so that makes me as a newer agent feel secure with being on this team and also trusting the other people on this team,
Sure.
even if I don't know them that well.
Sure.
I trust you so much that I'm like, okay, I'm
Well, I
going to
appreciate
take
that.
his word
I appreciate
for it.
that. Well, I mean, obviously, I learned everything I learned. It was from trial and error, and I made a lot of mistakes in my early days. Also, was partnered with Glenn Green, who's the most analytical person ever on the planet. Everything in his life was spreadsheeted and planned out.
I wish I could have got to meet him, because
Yeah.
that's how I like to work.
He was something, man. He was good at what he did. But he also trained our assistant Cassidy. But Cassidy, in my book, knows more about the real estate investment industry than Glenn and I combined, because she's a genius savant. Like, she just absorbs info and just retains it. Once she learns something, she never forgets it. So,
and even that's a great asset to the team.
Yeah.
Even though we can't necessarily refer her to, go do certain things, she has the knowledge for it.
oh,
Well,
trust
and
me, I've been
she's-
trying to get her license for 3 years.
But she's
I'm
so
still
useful.
trying.
She's so useful for us because we're out in the field all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, many times we can't get back to the office immediately and take care of something, but she can help us with that.
Call Cassie, tell her what you need, and she just does it. She's good at it. So that is the advantage of what we have over a lot of these other investment groups. We actually give a shit. That's the crazy part, is I know a lot of agents, and I'm not trying to disparage any agents. Don't come down on me and find me for being disparaging about other agents. But let's face it, most of them are lazy. Most of them are uneducated. They don't do their research. They don't put the work into creating that relationship. They don't put the work into making sure that what this client expects happens, right? We do. We take the time to go out to these properties and spend the time evaluating the properties and spend the time talking to the contractors and then looking the inspection reports and negotiating with the sellers and buyers to make sure our assets are going to perform the way we want them to. Then after it closes and you actually own the property, that's the other part of it, is that we're still involved in the property. We're still evaluating. I just did this with Amish yesterday. He's got 11 properties. He has 4 of them that are in the negative cash flow for annually. So we sat down each property and went through the entire year to figure out, how did that happen? Well, it turned out it happened because of all these stupid maintenance issues that kept coming up. I figured out that half of them were BS. He was just allowing someone to manage his property and just say, yep, you need to do this. Okay, do it. Here's a check.
Yeah, it's so hard
And
for
not
the
ask
investors
the
out
question,
of town.
well, was that the tenant's fault? And should I be paying for that? Or is that something that the tenant should pay for? And when I went through all of these 4 properties with him, line by line, it turned out he would have been in the positive had he taken the time to pay attention to the repairs and the management. And that's something we did for him. So now that he understands that, Amish now is going to go into 2025 in the green on every property he has.
And then just a side note on the property that I was just talking about, I'm saying this to say, especially for the newer agents, you're going to mess up. You're probably going to take losses. You're probably going to have to come out of your pocket sometimes. This particular deal that I was speaking of, I had to come out of my pocket because I made a small mess up. Not happy about that, but it was
well,
solely,
what you did is you installed,
on me.
uninstalled, installed, uninstalled,
Yeah.
then installed, and then uninstalled a condenser like 5-6 times.
Right. So that was on me. I was jumping the gun. But I say this to say, even investors, they learn from their mistakes. You have to take something away from the mistake in order for you, A, not to do it again, B, to learn, and C, to do better. You know better, you do better. So this deal, like I was saying, it would have been great to have a team because Nick could have gave me a quote on the front end. Well, now I've came out of pocket because of my mistake. The deal's probably not going to close. So it's now it's a loss all the way around the board instead of a win
let me
for
tell you
everyone.
something
But I
about
learned
that.
from it, and I just want newer agents to know, like, you're going to mess up. It's
Right.
okay. You just find a way to fix
Absolutely.
it, move forward. And
As good as Glenn Green was, he probably spent 20 times that in his first 3 years doing the right thing for his client. Most agents would be like, oh, it wasn't my fault. That was so-and-so's fault, and try to get out of being responsible for it. Glenn and I both have paid a lot of money because we own up. We make a mistake, we own up to it. And if my client's going to lose their earnest money, I'll write them a check. Say, look, no harm done. My bad. I apologize. That was my mistake. And if you own up to it, guess what? That inspector's going to, the investor's going to respect you. They're going to
they'll
trust
be a little
you.
more lenient with you and give you another
Well,
chance.
they understand that you're going to be honest with them if you screw up. Everybody screws up. Everybody. There's no perfect person on the planet. And if you own up to it, you build respect, you build rapport, you build a good team. So I want our listeners to know that we have a small team, but we have a pretty powerful and solid team. I think we have the best of pretty much anything an investor needs. I think we've worked hard to vet the people we work with, and they are all on the same page as we are. They understand one thing. We are here to make sure we build a performing portfolio for our investors. And if you're going to be our inspector and you're going to be our contractor, you have to carry the same goal. And if you don't, out the door, because there's 100 guys behind you that we can just pull in and vet them. And I think that's brought us into an area where we can be trusted by investors to know I'm not there, but I've got 5, 6, 10 people on my team that are handling this for me start to finish.
Yep. And like
That's
you
a great
always say, Brett, if you do your job right, they're going to keep coming back.
Absolutely.
And word of mouth is still a very popular, thing. People
We had
don't
this discussion.
probably realize it as much because social media is so big. But word of mouth, you get investors, you do your job right, they keep coming back. Well, they're going to tell, their buddy investors, hey, this is who I work with. And it's great to have that one-stop shop. I think that's a really big plus for our team.
Well, there are two things. One conversation you and I had, I was in the truck, you were on your way here, about an investor and about what's going on with that investor and how long-term that's going to create problems for you as an agent, not just with other brokers and other agents that you send offers to. The flip side of that is, here's a trick. And I didn't realize this until a few years ago. When you do your job right, you get investors and you get volume. And when you increase your volume, you know what happens? Other agents out there say, oh, well, I got a new investor client. Let me call Brett. Oh, I got another new investor client. Let me call Brett. Brett's always got something I can probably sell. And you all of a sudden you start getting calls daily from other agents and brokers in town who know you're the volume guy or you're one of the volume guys and you're going to have something that'll fit my client's needs off market. And now your business just blows up. And you don't get there unless you do the beginning work at the bottom and you do it right.
Yeah,
you do it honestly and you do it truthfully, and then you'll just watch your business mushroom.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, we're not getting rich off of one $135,000 house.
No.
But we want to make that investor happy so that they buy 10 from us next year, and then
eventually
they tell all of their
you sell
friends.
150 houses a year with the same group of investors, and every year you hope to add a couple new investors, give
and
yourself
it's just
a raise.
recycling.
A lot of agents look at it as a daunting task. I can tell you Glenn's philosophy was spot on, and I used his philosophy, and my business blew up. His business blew up.
It's crazy they would look at it as a daunting task, but I suppose you would think that when you're looking at a short goal instead of looking long term.
Right.
Long term, there's nothing daunting about it.
You know why most
because
agents aren't
realtors
good?
want the money, so
Right.
it's like if you want the money, do the work, and long term you will get the money.
Most agents aren't good at what they do for that very simple reason. They're chasing the money. The easy money is what they think. I'm going to just put a sign in the yard and wait for somebody to buy the house and get my commission check. They don't want to they don't want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's that are required to make sure you're doing your job effectively as the state of Tennessee requires you to do it. So,
And I get it. Yes, as realtors, we are in it, partially for the money. I mean, let's be real. Everyone needs a career. You got bills. There's no secret about it. But if you go into it with the mindset of it's not just only about the money, and you want to actually provide good customer service, and all those other things that fall in line with that, you will see the money, on the back end. But I guess as realtors and in social media, you expect to wake up the next day and it's like,
Exactly.
oh, I'm rich. And it's impossible.
no. As the Japanese always said, do your job right, do the volume, the money will follow. And that's the reason
And
why.
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. The Japanese kind of invented that. When I was in college, I sold copiers for a living. That's what I did. And we sold a copier called Konica. It was a Japanese-made copier. And the corporate trainers would come into our office to train us, and they'd be like, look, this little $3,000 machine, it's like the size of a printer today. We'd rather you sell 100 of these than to sell 4 of these $50,000 duplicators. Why? Well, same philosophy with the Toyota cars. They're cheap, they're compact, they're easy to sell, and we make our money on volume versus selling one big machine. Now, most agents want to sell the $50,000 Konica duplicator.
Yep.
I realized right away,
houses.
I'd rather sell 1,000 of these little crappy machines for $3,000 a pop because I made more money. Simple philosophy.
And especially with investors, like I said, it's a recycle.
Yep.
Rinse, repeat, you know.
That's right. All right. Well, we appreciate you listening to It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere Real Estate Podcast. You can get in touch with us at 901-692-7401 or go to our website, mymemphisinvestmentproperties.com. Appreciate you listening. Have a great one.
For more common sense real estate tips, listen and subscribe at 5o'clocksomewherepodcast.com. The 5 O'Clock Somewhere Real Estate Investor Podcast is a Sound Ideas Group production.